I noticed it because the mirror in the hallway fogged up. Before I stepped out of the bathroom, I stood there for a second, toothbrush still in my mouth, watching the condensation settle, and then clear again, even though the door was open and the air was cool. I wiped the glass with my hand, expecting to see my own reflection come back sharp. Instead, the lower half of the mirror stayed smudged, like something shorter than me had been standing too close to it. At first, I assumed it was leftover from the previous tenant, and that assumption felt reasonable for only a moment. That assumption didn't last long once I stepped back and took a better look, because when I stepped back, I realized the fogged area was at knee height, and I don't kneel in that hallway, which made the detail impossible to ignore. That was the moment I understood this hadn't just started. It had already been happening for longer than I wanted to accept. The first few days passed without incident, at least nothing I could point to confidently. Small things felt misplaced, but I assumed it was part of settling in. A chair angled differently than I remembered, shoes not exactly where I remembered leaving them, the bathroom mat folded inward instead of lying flat. I didn't question it immediately, even though something about it felt off. I should have questioned it sooner than I did. The first time I actually saw it, I didn't register it as a figure. I was walking past the spare room when something dark moved low across the doorway. It wasn't fast, and it wasn't slow either. It felt deliberate in a way that made me stop walking. I stopped and looked inside. The room was empty. There was no furniture yet, just bare floor and a window facing the side yard. I told myself it was a shadow from outside. That explanation didn't sit well, but it was enough to keep me moving. That night, I woke up because the bed dipped near my feet, not sharply, and not like someone had sat down. It felt more like weight being tested, and then adjusted. I stayed still. I didn't check the time, and I didn't turn on the light. I expected the feeling to stop once I stayed quiet. That isn't what happened. The pressure stayed for several seconds, then shifted slightly to the side, like something repositioning itself to be more comfortable. I felt the mattress return to normal only after I held my breath, without realizing I had done it. In the morning, the foot of the bed was covered in dark hair, not strands, but clumps instead. They were coarse and uneven, pressed into the fabric like they'd been rubbed there repeatedly. I stood there longer than I should have. I didn't understand that moment at the time. I vacuumed the bed, washed the sheets, and told myself I'd explain it later when I felt calmer. That explanation never came. The second encounter was clearer. I was brushing my teeth at night when I noticed movement in the mirror behind me. It was low again, just like before. It was too low to be a person standing normally. I turned slowly. It was crouched just outside the bathroom doorway, partially hidden by the wall. It was short, and it was covered in hair. Its body was compact, hunched inward like it was used to fitting under things. The hair wasn't fur-like. It looked more like thick, matted human hair growing where it shouldn't. Its head was too round. Its shoulders were too narrow. Its arms hung longer than they should have for its size, ending in hands that rested flat on the floor. It didn't rush. It didn't react to being seen. It simply adjusted its position so I could see it better. The discomfort felt corrective rather than threatening. I realized then that fear wasn't useful here. Fear assumed resistance, and this felt instructional. When I stepped forward, it retreated slightly, staying low, never turning its back. When I stepped sideways, it mirrored the movement, keeping the same distance between us. I learned quickly that approaching it led to repositioning. That became the pattern. It appeared in places that forced awareness, at the end of hallways, beside door frames, under tables where my legs would brush past it. It never blocked me completely. It made sure I noticed where it was. I stopped using the spare room after finding it sitting in the center, facing the door. Hair spread around it like it had been combed outward deliberately. Some things clearly weren't meant to be entered once they were claimed. After that, the house began to feel smaller, not visually smaller, but physically different. Distances began to feel inconsistent. Rooms didn't behave the way they used to. The path from the bedroom to the kitchen felt longer at night and shorter when I tried to rush. I had to move differently to compensate. The third time it touched me, I didn't feel pain. I felt pressure instead. I was reaching for a glass in the kitchen cabinet when something pressed against the back of my knee. It was firm and corrective. I stumbled forward, catching myself on the counter. When I looked down, it was right there. It was closer than before. It was close enough that I could see the skin beneath the hair, pale and stretched too tight. Its face was hard to process. The features existed, but they didn't align properly. The mouth sat slightly off center. The eyes were dark and deep, set wide apart, always angled upward, like it was studying me from below. It didn't blink. I realized my involvement wasn't required anymore. From that point on, it stopped reacting to what I did. It anticipated it instead. If I slowed down, it repositioned ahead of me. If I rushed, it appeared at the next turn. If I stood still, it waited where I would need to go next. I stopped being the one who decided where to walk. Sleeping became structured. I could only lie on one side of the bed. Any attempt to turn resulted in that familiar pressure, firm and corrective, until I adjusted back. I didn't choose to stop resisting. It simply didn't occur to me anymore. The hair spread further each night. It appeared on the carpet. It showed up on the couch. It collected inside my shoes. Cleaning it felt wrong. Every time I tried, I'd find more in places I hadn't reached yet. The realization arrived after the damage was done. The final phase didn't feel violent. It felt organized instead. It began standing upright occasionally, not fully upright, but just enough to test height. Each night, it stood a little taller. The last time I saw it clearly, it stood beside the mirror, in the hallway, the top of its head aligned perfectly with the fogged area I'd noticed days earlier. I had seen it before. I just hadn't seen it there. Now it stays close, always within reach, always low enough that I have to look down. The house is quiet because nothing is out of place anymore.